news.
Let's go a little college football in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Many people were surprised that Brian Kelly decided to leave Notre Dame for LSU.
Whoa.
But he kind of confirmed what I believe you said about why he left Notre Dame for LSU. He said, I felt like I did everything I could do at Notre Dame, and they felt like they did everything they could do for me. And so here we are. I felt like that was what I was looking for, was student-athlete centered, and I wanted to see that piece. And we didn't seem to be on the same path as to how that was going to get accomplished.
Yeah. You can get more great players into LSU. Mm-hmm. First of all, warm weather, stronger conference. The boosters are financially willing to go further. LSU is built to win a national championship. Notre Dame is built to be really strong. But there are limitations. It's a academic center. It has got the religious overlay. It's also cold weather and in the middle of nowhere. It is absolutely, there are 7 or 8 programs in America. It is easier to win a lot of games, and one of them is LSU.
Absolutely. He also admitted that he made frequent requests for more resources and improvements at Notre Dame, and they weren't fulfilled. And he cited the fact that LSU's practice facility has its own nutrition center, dining hall, and a chef dedicated to the football program. He asked for similar upgrades at Notre Dame. These massive college football programs now, in order to stay competitive with recruiting, you have to have state-of-the-art facilities.
Yes.
Like, it sounds good, and a lot of boosters and alumni get caught up in, like, the brand, and they're nostalgic about it.
Yeah.
And it's just, you have to understand that if you have a top-level player and they're walking into Alabama, what they're walking into. Like, you can order food off an app on your phone.
Right.
Like, LSU has a chef for the football team. Like, there are levels to this, and you're just going to have to do so much more to recruit a top kid. You're going to really have to sell them on, you're getting a degree from Notre Dame.
Like Pete, Brian Kelly is really underrated.
Yes.
So Notre Dame, after Lou Holtz left, went through about 5 coaches. He's the one. Not only did he go and win, it got better and better and better. He played Georgia twice. The Georgia team that just won a title. He played them twice in 2 years. And those games with 4 minutes left were undecided. And I'll tell you right now, I was wrong. I never thought Notre Dame would get to that point. I'm a college football addict. I look at the recruiting classes. The fact that he got them within a whisker of Georgia, which to me, Georgia's the only team in the country. LSU and Georgia are the only 2 college football programs in the country in the last 10 years that have played Alabama in the last 10 years, and I have thought at least 1 or 2 of their teams had better players than Alabama. The LSU team with Joe Burrow had more good players. Georgia last year had more good players than Alabama. It was close. But Notre Dame does not have LSU talent, Georgia talent.
No,
it doesn't.
It's not a knock on Notre Dame as a school or as a program.
It's a great school.
There are limitations.
Yes.
And there are things that you have to overcome when you are in recruiting, and recruiting is the lifeblood of college athletics. That's just what it is. You have to have better players. You can overcome in moments, but if you're going to have a sustained program like that, recruiting is very important. By the way, we're Tigers fans this year for the next league.
Oh, well, yeah, because you have a cousin there.
My nephew, yes.
Yeah.
Mason. And Arizona football fans. Yeah. And UM fans. We'll sneak in USC where we can. So there was a report last season that DeMar DeRozan was going to join the Lakers, and they acquired Russell Westbrook instead. DeRozan thought it was a done deal, but it turns out he might not be too upset that fell through. A report from ESPN recently said, I talked to someone from DeRozan's camp when DeRozan was in town in LA, and the impression that I got from his camp was that DeRozan felt that the Lakers were sort of in disarray. They didn't really have a vision. They didn't know what they were doing.
Well,
that's from young Maisuk from ESPN.
Yeah, you said this yesterday, and it's true. What are they? That's a great. If I say to you, Milwaukee, what are they? Giannis driven, defense first. Like Phoenix, fast, youthful, athletic.
Yeah.
Golden State for years. The center of 3-point shooting. What are the Lakers? Nothing. They don't do anything well.
They haven't had an identity for a long time. It's not just a LeBron thing. That's why I think the fix for the Lakers isn't just with LeBron and AD and Westbrook. Their brand, really, I think since Kobe left, has really been very confusing. Are they young? Are they a legacy team? Are they a cornerstone of the NBA? Yes, the brand internationally is still massive.
Yes.
They still are the LA Lakers,
the brand
like the
is
New York
big.
Yankees, like the Dallas Cowboys. But what is your identity?
Well, this is great because we just did a Notre Dame story. Brian Kelly talks about this. His first 5 years at Notre Dame, he was just trying to get better players. It wasn't until Brian Kelly said, we had to kind of switch things up. Harbaugh did it this year. Harbaugh said, we've got to become something, not just more good players. And so Georgia, for all their offense, is defensive-led. Alabama, Saban in his prime. Defense, he has pivoted to offense. The Dolphins just pivoted as a franchise to offense. When Brian Kelly said, we're really going to be more about offensive line, power football, control, Notre Dame got really good. I don't care how many good players you have. What are you? We could have a million broadcasters. Fox News dominates cable. Like them or not, they are something, and we all know what it is.
I think that applies for anything in life. Like, if you're going to be very successful at anything, you have to have a vision. You have to decide what it is you're going to be. Uber, Tesla, Amazon, like Fox, the Lakers, LeBron, like, what are you? If you can't describe, even for a show, like we hear this in Hollywood all the time, you should be able to describe a show in just a few words.
Yeah.
And they get it, and you know what it is. If you're just trying to piece together an explanation for your organization, you don't have an identity. And that's what I think the Lakers really need to examine. It's not so much about LeBron or AD or Westbrook or the rest of this roster or Frank Vogel. What are you going to be moving forward?
Yeah, Uber is a consumer-controlled transportation company. Taxis, they control you. Buses, on their time. Uber is consumer-controlled transportation. We never had it. Trains, there's a schedule. Buses, there's a schedule. I mean, if you pitch me a company, you got to be able to give me like 2 sentences or I'm out.
Yeah, you start looking up, like, and then maybe this, like, you don't know what it is, and that doesn't work. That's not a sustained program for success. So wide receivers are getting all the money now.
A lot of it. Joy, a lot.
A lot of money. So Stephon Diggs signed a 4-year extension worth $104 million with the Bills. But when you look at his actual contract, it's really quite
No. He's one of the 4 or 5 I would pay. Stephon Diggs' contract is, and by the way, Buffalo's really well run. It's a very good contract.
But even yearly, isn't it like $14 million?
Yeah, I can live with that for Stephon Diggs. Absolutely.
Well, Deebo Samuel reacted to that news and said, oh, okay then. He also removed pictures of the Niners from his Instagram and unfollowed them on social media and looking for a new contract. Now, here's the thing. I do think there's a handful, just like quarterbacks, there's a handful of receivers, there's a handful of quarterbacks that I would pay. I would pay Devontae Adams. I would pay Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
I would pay Stephon Diggs.
Cooper Kupp's gotten into that.
Cooper Kupp. I actually think I would pay Deebo Samuel because of the amount of things that Deebo does. Like, Deebo is a very unique player. He is extremely physical. You can use him in a lot of different ways in the offense. He's very reliable. I do think, like anything else, the market's going to correct itself.
Yeah.
There are going to be receivers that get paid, that get overpaid, but I think that happens with anything in the NFL. We saw this with running backs for a while, too. Running backs were getting insane contracts.
Yeah.
And it corrected itself. Maybe then too much, and people were like, oh, you don't need a running back at all. Like, no, you do need a good running back, but you also have to balance that with a solid offensive line. So maybe this is a correction because of the amount of money that quarterbacks are getting, and we've seen the results of, say, having a Jamar Chase with a Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, it is a copycat league, and when Cincinnati gets to the championship with a bunch of good receivers, I think a lot of this, I mean, I'm serious. I think the Bengals are driving some of this. We're like, their O-line was bad, their quarterback came off an injury, their linebackers weren't great, they have a coach we're not sure is good, but the quarterback and weapons were amazing. And I think the Bengals, people are going, you don't have to be perfect.
No, but I do think that, well, would they have been in the Super Bowl without Jamar Chase? No, but not having an offensive line cost them in the Super Bowl because of the amount of sacks.
It should have cost them against Tennessee.
Right, and they overcame that. Now, Deebo had 1,400 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, but he also added 365 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns.
Listen, he's one of those guys, if I had to pay him, I would pay him all of it up front.
Yes.
Because I think in 3 years from today, he's not the same player. Can I get 2 great years out of him as I pursue the Super Bowl?